talk about infighting in the Army.
Hi, how's it going? I have a random question for you. Have you ever been on a road trip? Like a really long road trip, either with friends, with family, possibly both? Let me ask you, about that road trip, did everybody get along? Because I'm willing to bet they didn't. I'm willing to bet at least at one point during that whole trip, somebody got on your nerves. Or you got on somebody else's nerves. But it's just basic human nature, right? You coop a bunch of people up together in one place for an extended period, tempers are gonna flare, people are gonna butt heads, it happens, right? And the Continental Army was the same way. When the Army stationed an entire regiment of 480, possibly 500 soldiers in one location for an extended period, soldiers butted heads too, right? They were tired, they were away from home, they're hungry, they're anxious. So yeah, they'd fight each other every once in a while, despite being on the same side. And the enlisted soldiers weren't the only ones that would do this. The officers would sometimes do it too, right? So to make sure that these army camps didn't break out into all-out brawls, sometimes these matches were staged. You know, they were actually organized into single combat matches just between two individuals to kind of settle a score, to work something out. And sometimes it wasn't even done for that reason. Sometimes soldiers just fought because they could, because they thought it was fun. And the officers, yeah, they'd get at each other's throats too. Whether you were an officer or whether you were an enlisted soldier, fighting in camps of any kind was strictly prohibited. So, fighting would usually take place in secret in places like this. Woodland areas, away from the camp, or if you were an officer, you probably go into town, right? You settle it that way, away from your superiors, so no one get in trouble, right? So that's what we're going to focus on in today's video. We're going to show you roughly how these fights could have played out. In this first example, what starts out as a friendly game turns violent when one soldier accuses the other of cheating, and an argument soon breaks out in camp over gambling. Now, gambling was its own offense, and while the punishment for it may solve that problem, it doesn't solve the personal issues these two men have with each other. So after their punishment is over, they might try to slip away from the camp to settle things on their own, the old-fashioned way. Boxing was already a combat sport in England, and during the American Revolution, it rose to popularity among soldiers, sailors, and Marines.
All right, I want a good, clean, fair fight from both of you two. Are you ready? Fight!
Oh, there you are. So yeah, in the 1740s, there was a British officer by the name of Thomas Anbury. He commented that boxing, as barbaric as it was humanity itself when compared with Virginian mode of fighting, which apparently wasn't all that fair. But if the peace was kept in camp and no one was caught, that's really all that mattered. Fights among officers were just as ridiculous.
Sergeant, a word. If you would please go to Captain Walmer, give him my compliments, and would you ask him to come to my tent? There's a matter of some urgency I need to discuss with him.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Captain Walmer.
Yes, Sergeant. What's the matter?
I'm sorry to bother you, sir, but Captain Savage requests your presence in his quarters. He says it's a matter of urgency.
As you can plainly see, I'm quite taken with morning reports right now. Kindly tell Captain Savage I have not the time for his trivialities at this time.
Yes, sir. Excuse me, Captain Savage.
Yes.
Captain Wallmiller, he sends his compliments as well, but he says he's far too busy this morning with morning reports to arrive at this moment.
Be so good as to inform the captain that my commission predates his by quite some time, and was any kind of gentleman, he would defer to my wishes. Go.
Yes.
Tell him.
Yes, Captain. Captain Wallmiller?
What is it this time, Sergeant?
Yeah, I'm so sorry to bother you again, Captain, but Captain Savage is really insistent that you come to his quarters, and he also said something that I wasn't entirely sure what it meant. He said something about your commissions in that his predates yours. I'm not sure what that means.
So Captain Savage is insistent. Well, if his commission predates mine, he would obviously have the knowledge not to be so insolent about this matter.
He said no.
I will not brook this kind of insolence. You go tell... I'll tell him myself!
Oh, okay.
What is the meaning of this?
Ooh, not the head.
Wallmiller has been struck in the head in front of an enlisted soldier. Now, he could have Captain Savage court-martialed for the offense, but to save face in front of the enlisted witnesses, officers would sometimes challenge each other instead. Dueling has origins that go back hundreds of years, and unlike boxing, dueling involved weaponry. Because of this, it was seen as a more gentlemanly way to settle disputes, as opposed to brawling at each other with bare fists. It became so popular in the mid-18th century that in 1777, a code book for dueling was published in Ireland, and that code came with 26 rules, which were more like guidelines because they weren't supposed to be doing it anyway. But according to that code, this is how a duel between officers would likely play out.
Sir, you've embarrassed me in front of the men. For this, I demand retribution. We could either bring this matter to the colonel or settle this in the field of honor like gentlemen. Which do you prefer, sir?
Let it be pistols then, sir.
I shall meet you if you have the stomach for it.
Ha! Lag on.
It was common for duels to end without any casualties because pistols of the 18th century weren't exactly known for their accuracy. But if both parties were satisfied, the duel could end right there. Or they could go ahead and load up a second shot, or a third, or a fourth. Just depends.
Are you satisfied, sir?
No, sir!
Yeah, they're going to be there for a while. So hope you enjoyed that video, guys. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we did making it. Be sure to watch next month's video. We're going to talk about the Continental Marines.